Hello students, in last class we have discussed axial skeleton. In axial skeleton totally 80 number of bones. Out of 80 bones, 29 are the skull bones. Out of 29 skull bones, 8 are the cranial bones and 14 are the facial bones, 7 are the associated bones. Total is in skull region 29 bones are there. And in the second one, vertebral column bones. In vertebral column, 26 bones in the adults. Out of 26, cervical bones are 7, thoracic bones are 12, lumbar bones are 5, sacral bones 1, and coccygeal bones or coccyx bone is 1. In adults, totally equals to 26. Whereas in embryo, cervical 7, thoracic are 12, lumbar 5, sacral 5, and cervical, coccyx bone, so coccygeal bone, are the 4, totally equals to 36 in the embryo. They are the vertebral column bones. And next to the vertebral column bones, sternum bone. Sternum, it is single bone. Present in the front side of nothing but the ventral surface of thoracic region. And next to the sternum, rib bones. Total rib bones are 24 or in 12 pairs. 12 pairs. Out of 12 pairs of the rib bones, first to seventh bone are called true bones. First to seventh bone are called true bones, and remaining 3 bones, 3 pairs of bones like 8th, 9th, and 10th bones are called false ribs. False ribs, because they are never directly connected to the sternum, associated to the 7th pair of the rib cage through hyaline cartilage. So they are commonly called false bones. And 11th, 12th pair commonly called floating ribs. Floating ribs, because they are never directly or indirectly connected to the sternum, means only interconnected to the thoracic bones, 11th and 12th vertebrae of the vertebral column bones. So they are commonly called floating bones. So this is the arrangement of rib bones in the thoracic region. So till here is the axial skeleton. So in the axial skeleton, 29 are the skull bones, 26 are the vertebral column bones, 1 is the sternum bone, and 24 are the ribs, rib cage, rib bones. Totally 80 bones. Totally 80 number of bones. So next to the axial skeleton is the appendicular skeleton. Second major part of skeleton is the appendicular skeleton. Appendicular skeleton. Here, meaning for appendicular skeleton means the composition of girdles and limbs together called appendicular skeleton. Listen here. The composition of girdles and limbs, that is pectoral girdle, pelvic girdle, forelimb and hind limbs together called appendicular skeleton. Appendicular skeleton. It includes 126 bones. Appendicular skeleton includes 126 bones. among 126 bones. That means the appendicular skeleton further divided into two parts, like girdle bones, Girdle, girdles, and limbs, limb bones, limbs. Here, the girdle bones are 6 in number, totally 6 in number, and limbs 120 in number, 120 number of bones. While girdles includes two types, like pectoral girdle. Pectoral girdle means shoulder girdle. Shoulder girdle, pectoral girdle includes 4 bones, and pelvic girdle. Pelvic girdle includes 2 bones. Now we are going to discuss about pectoral girdle 4 bones. Listen here. Here the pectoral girdle, otherwise called shoulder girdle. Shoulder girdle. This area is the pectoral girdle. Shoulder girdle. It includes 2 types of bones. Pectoral girdle, each pectoral girdle includes 2 types of bones, like scapula and clavicle. Scapula and clavicle. Your clavicle bone also called collarbone or beautiful bone. Another name of clavicle is the collarbone or beautiful bone. So there are 2 types of pectoral bones, like scapular bone and the clavicle bone. Yeah, the scapular bone is more or less triangle bone. Listen here. The scapular bone is more or less triangle bone present on dorsal surface of shoulder. On dorsal surface of shoulder. Listen here. This bone is the scapular bone. Scapular bone. So it is more or less triangle bone found on dorsal surface of shoulder region, shoulder area. It consists of 3 processes. Scapular bone consists of 3 processes, like crocoid process, spine process, spine, spine process, and acromial process. Acromial process. Listen here. Scapular bone is more or less triangle shaped bone found present on dorsal surface of shoulder region. It consists of 3 processes, like crocoid process, spine process, and acromial process. Acromial process. Very important. Just below the acromial process, there is a deep cavity. Below the acromial process, there is a deep process, deep cavity called glenoid cavity. Glenoid cavity. Glenoid cavity. Into which, into the glenoid cavity, the head of humerus bone, arm bone of the forelimb, humerus bone. This arm bone, head of the humerus bone, get articulate, get joint into the glenoid cavity in the form of ball and socket joint. Ball and socket joint. That is one type of freely movable joint, synovial joint. So here, below the acromial process, there is a deep cavity called glenoid cavity. Into the glenoidus bone, head of humerus bone, arm bone, articulate in the form of ball and socket joint is the scapular bone. So totally, the scapular bone consists of three processes like crooked processor, spiny processor, acromial process. Below the acromial process is a deep cavity called glenoid cavity. Into the glenoid cavity, head of the humerus bone articulates. Articulates means fixed in the form of ball and socket joint. Is the structure of a scapular bone. And next to the scapular bone is the clavicle bone or collar bone or beautiful bone. Listen here, dear students, it is more or less cylindrical bone having two free ends. Collar bone is more or less cylindrical bone having two free ends. One free end articulate with fixed in the clavicle notch of sternum bone. Yesterday I have discussed with you sternum bone consists of three parts like mandibular, body, zygophysis. Yeah. The mandibular has a deep cavity called clavicle notch. Into the clavicle notch. The clavicle free end fixed in the form of hyaline cartilaginous joint. So one end of the collarbone articulate with clavicle notch of sternum bone. So you should remember the clavicle notch found in dash bone. Very important question. It is present on the sternum bone. Into the clavicle notch, one free end of collarbone articulates fixed in the form of cartilaginous joint, cartilaginous joint. While another free end articulates with acromial process. Listen here. Say, your collarbone having two free ends. One free end articulates with clavicle notch of the sternum bone, and another free end articulates with acromial process. Is the structure of clavicle or collarbone. So each pectoral girdle consists of two bones. But in our body, there are two pectoral girdles. That is right pectoral girdle and left pectoral girdle. Each pectoral girdle having two bones. So two pectoral girdles, that is both right and left pectoral girdle containing totally four bones. That is two scapular bones and two collar bones. Totally four pectoral girdle bones. That is first type of girdle bone. And next one is the pelvic girdle. Next second kind of girdle is the pelvic girdle. Yeah, the pelvic girdle centrally consists of a triangle shaped bone. See, this is one triangle shaped bone present at the center of pelvic girdle. Listen here. This triangle bone formed by fusion of four sub-bones. That is the sacral bone. Below the sacral bone is the coccyx bone. So, on either side of pelvic sacral bone. On either side of sacral bone are the two sub-bones. Listen here. On either side of Sacral bone are the two subbones, are the two subbones. You should remember this point. In the pelvic girdle, there is a triangle shaped bone at the center called sacral. SACRAL. That is a type of, say, this is the sacrum bone in the diagram, in the given diagram. So, in the pelvic girdle, there is a triangle shaped bone at the center called sacral bone. Sacral bone. It is a type of vertebral column bone. Below the lumbar is the sacrum. Sacrum is formed by fusion of 5 subbones in the adult body. That is the sacrum bone, and below the sacral bone, last bone of vertebral column is the coccyx bone. It is formed by fusion of 4 subbones. This is the coccyx bone. So, when we are discussing about pelvic girdle, we won't be consider the sacral and coccyx bone, because they are the parts of the vertebral column bone in the axial skeleton. But our topic is the appendicular skeleton. So excluding nothing but other than excluding sacrum and coccyx, so includes the pelvic girdle. So you should remember this statement in clearly. Listen here. Sacrum bone and coccyx bone parts of the vertebral column bone in the axial skeleton, first type of skeleton. In the appendicular skeleton, second type of girdle is the pelvic girdle. In the pelvic girdle, we have to consider only two bones present on either side of sacrum and coccyx. Such two bones are called coxal bones, COXAL, coxal bones. Now these are the coxal bones present on either side of sacral and coccyx bone. So you should remember this statement. Each coxal bone consists of 3 parts. Each coxal bone consists of 3 parts. Each coxal bone consists of 3 parts, like ilium. This area is the ilium. Pubis, and ischium, ischium. So you should remember ilium, pubis, and ischium are the 3 parts of coxa. 3 parts of coxa. So each coxal bone consists of 3 parts, like ilium, pubis, and ischium. Very important. The two coxal bones fuse at the point of pubic bone. So you should remember this statement in clearly. Saying the two coxal bones fuse at the point of pubis bone to form pubis symphysis. Very important. Yeah, symphysis nothing but fusion at the point of pubic part of the two coxal bones. That's why this fused area is commonly called pubic symphysis. It is made up of hyaline cartilaginous tissue. So, at the point of pubis region, of the two coxal bones fused together in the form of pubis symphysis. Very important. And the 3 parts, will listen here. The 3 parts of coxa, like Echium, Ilium, Echium, and pubis. See, the coincide region of three parts like ilium, pubis, and echium are the deep cavities, are the deep notches, deep cavities called acetabulum. Acetabulum cavity, very important. Listen here. At the fusion of three parts, like ilium, echium, and pubis. There is a deep cavity called acetabulum cavity. Into the acetabulum cavity, listen here. Into the acetabulum cavity, the head of femur bone is fixed in the form of ball and socket joint. Listen here. Into the acetabulum cavity, the head of femur, thigh bone, femur bone, fixed in the form of ball and socket joint, is the function of acetabulum cavity. Very important term. So, sacrum, nothing but the pectoral girdle consists of two coxal bones. But you should remember, at the center of two coxal bones is the triangle bone called sacrum, and below the sacrum is the coccyx, is the continuation of vertebral column bone. They are the last two vertebral column bones. So either side of sacrum and coccyx are the two coxal bones. Each coxa consists of three parts like ilium, pubis, and echium. While the two coxal bones fuse at the point of pubis region, pubis part, in the form of hyaline cartilaginous joint called pubis symphysis. And at the coincide of three parts of the coxa, like upper ilium, lower echium, middle pubis, is the deep notch, is the deep cavity called acetabulum cavity. Acetabulum notch. Into the acetabulum cavity, the head of femur fixed in the form of ball and socket joint. That is also one type of free movable joint, synovial joint, ball and socket joint. Is the structure of pelvic region, pelvic girdle. So you should remember the pelvic girdle consists of two bones, like one coxa and second coxa, first and second coxa, two coxal bones. Very important. So the cavity present in the pelvic girdle is the acetabulum cavity. Into the acetabulum cavity, head of thigh bone, head of femur bone is fixed in the form of ball and socket joint. While the glenoid cavity, very important, the glenoid cavity present on the sacrum bone, on the scapular bone, into the glenoid cavity, the head of humerus bone, arm bone, fixed in the form of ball and socket joint. So, where should we find acetabulum cavity means? In the coxal bone of pelvic girdle. In the coxal bone of pelvic girdle. Where do you find glenoid cavity? Nothing but in the scapular bone of pectoral girdle. In the glenoid cavity, head of humerus bone fixed in the form of ball and socket joint. While in the acetabulum cavity, head of femur bone, thigh bone fixed in the form of ball and socket joint is the structure of a pelvic girdle. But one more important information is the area of pubis, the diameter of pubis is more and larger in females than males. Very important. The area of pubic region The area of pelvis is more in females than in males. This is because it provides accommodation place to the fetus during pregnancy period. That's why the pubic bone, the pubis region, area is more and large in size in females as compared to the males. Is the structure of the pelvic girdle, part of the pelvic girdle. So you should remember important points. Each pelvic girdle consists of two coxal bones, and each coxa has three parts like upper ilium, middle pubis, lower ichium. Very important. Here ichium enclosed by a cavity, a space called obturator. Obturator foramen. Foramen. Obturator foramen is the space or hole present in the ichium, and at the fusion point of three parts like ilium, ichium or pubis is the acetabulum cavity into which the head of femur bone is fixed in the form of ball and socket joint. Are the two types of girdles like pectoral girdle and pelvic girdle. So you should remember, in pectoral girdle there are 4 bones, in the pelvic girdle 2 bones, total in the girdles 6 bones are there. First part of the appendicular skeleton, while the second part of the appendicular skeleton are the limbs. Second part of appendicular skeleton are the limbs, like 4 limbs and hind limbs. Listen here, this is the diagram of scatter diagram of 4 limb. You should remember, in each limb there are 30 bones are there. Means 2 forelimbs, so 2 hind limbs are there. In each forelimb, right forelimb, right hand, or in the left hand, left forelimb containing 30 bones, 30 bones. Among them, first one is the humerus bone. Humerus bone. This is humerus bone. Below the humerus bone, radius and ulna. Radius and ulna are the 2 bones, and below the radius and ulna 8 carpels. 8 carpels. 8 carpels connected to 5 metacarpals. 5 metacarpals and 5 metacarpals connected to the phalanges. Total number of phalanges present in the digits, nothing but 2 fingers, are 14. Listen here, these are the bones of one of the forelimb, either right forelimb or left forelimb. Listen here, forelimb consists of one humerus bone, 1, otherwise called arm bone, and radius, ulna, ulna, 2 bones, carpals, 18 number, metacarpals, metacarpals, 5 in number, and phalanges, 14 in number. Out of 14 bones, very important, the thumb finger having only 2 phalanges, while remaining fingers, remaining each of the finger containing three bones. Means remaining 4 fingers having three bones and thumb finger having only 2 bones, totally 14 bones of the phalanges. So, humerus bone, arm bone, 1 bone, radius and ulna, 2 bones, carpals bones, otherwise called wrist bones, 18 number, metacarpals, palm bones, PALM, palm region, palm bones, 5 in number, while the phalanges, nothing but 2 fingers bones, phalanges, 14 in number. Out of 14, only thumb bone having 2 sub bones, 2 phalanges, while the remaining fingers, each finger containing 3 each bones, 3 phalanges, totally 30 bones. So, right forelimb, right hand containing 30 bones. Similarly, left hand containing 30 bones. 30 into 2 totally equals to 60 bones present in the forelimbs. Similarly, in the hind limb, so connected to the pelvic girdle. Here there are 2 hind limbs like right and left, right leg and left leg. Each hind limb is also contained 30 bones. Like, listen here, in the forelimb, humerus bone, radius ulna, humerus 1, radius ulna 2 in number, carpals 8 in number, metacarpals 5 in number, phalanges 14 in number. Totally 30 bones in the each forelimb, and 2 forelimbs, right and left forelimbs, so totally equals to 60 bones. Similarly, in the hind limb, there are 30 bones, like, here, this is the coxal bone, into the coxal bone, in the coxal bone is the acetabulum cavity, in the acetabulum cavity to fix the head of femur bone. Very important, here the femur bone is the longest and also strongest bone in the man body. Femur is the longest and strongest bone in the man body. This femur bone connected to tibia and fibula. And below it, very important, tarsals, no carpals, so tarsals, but very important, they are 7 in number. Tarsals, so 7 in number. Your tarsals connected to the metatarsals, 5 metatarsals, 5 in number, and 5 metatarsals, so connected to the phalanges. phalanges or thigh bones. See here, this is the forelimb, sorry, hind limb. Hind limb, either right or left. Each hind limb consists of femur bone, 1, tibia and fibula, TIBIA, tibia 1, fibula, FIBULA 1, fibula bone 1, tarsals 7, metatarsals 5. Very important. In addition to all these bones, in the knee joint, means at the junction between femur bone and the tibia bone is the patella bone, PATELLA, otherwise called knee bone. Knee bone. So here one tarsal is absent. Important term. In the forelimb, carpals are 8 in number. Carpals are 8 in number. But in the hind limb, tarsals are 7 in number. Tarsals are 7 in number. In addition to 7 tarsals, one additional bone, that is knee bone, patella bone, present in the hind limb. Means knee bone maintains the one lacking of tarsal bone in the hind limb. One lacking of tarsal bone in the hind limb. As a result, each hind limb having 30 bones. That is, one femur bone, tibia and fibula 2, knee bone 1, tarsals 7, metatarsals 5, and phalanges. These are the phalanges. Phalanges 14 in number. In the main thigh, larger thigh, 2 phalanges. While the remaining thighs, 3 bones each. Like that of fingers of the forelimb, except the thumb finger, remaining fingers having 3 phalanges. 3 phalanges and 2 are the thumb bones. Similarly, in the hind limb, the head thigh, main thigh having 2 sub bones, while the remaining thighs having 3 bones each. So totally 30 bones present in the each hind limb. 30 bones present in the each hind limb. So here 2 hind limbs are there, 2 legs are there. That is right and left leg. Each leg having 30 bones, 2 legs into 2, that is equal to 60 bones. So total, you should remember this point. In the limbs, 120 bones are there. Out of 120, 60 bones from the forelimbs and 60 bones from the hind limbs, and 6 from the girdles. Out of 6 bones of the girdle, 4 bones from the pectoral girdle and 2 bones from the pelvic girdle. So total bones present in the appendicular skeleton, 126. Out of 126, 6 are the girdle bones and 120 are the limb bones. So till here is the parts of the human skeletal system, bones of the human skeletal system. Totally 206 bones. In adult body, 206 bones. Out of 206 bones, 80 bones in the axial skeleton and 126 bones in the appendicular skeleton. Totally 206 bones. Very important. Bone names and also number very important for competitive exams. Now All these 206 bones connected to each other, connected to one another by different types of joints, different types of connective joints, never same kind of joints, by different types of joints. But yeah, giants plays important role for movement of body or locomotion of body or movements of body parts, etc. etc. So without giants, no locomotion of the body from one place to another place or no movement of body parts. Body parts. That is the most important functional aspect of the giants, different types of giants. Important, in which the study of bones giant is called arthrology. Study of bones giant is called arthrology. Arthrology. So now we are discussing about. Now we are going to discussing about different types of giants present in the man body, found in the human body. Different types of giants. See here, on the basis of nature of movement, bone giants in our body classified into, divided into three types. Divided into three types, like immovable giants, immovable giants, or sin, SYN, arthral giants, synarthral giants, synarthral giants, or immovable giants, slightly movable giants, slightly movable giants, or amphiarthral giants, amphiarthral giants, or cartilage giants, cartilage giants, chondro giants, cartilage giants, and last one is the free movable giants, or synovial giants, synovial giants, or diarthral giants. Very important. Free movable synovial giants or diarthral giants. Second one is the slightly movable giants, amphiarthral giants or cartilage giants. And the first one is the immovable giants or synarthral giants. Here, syn nothing but completely fused. That's why that is called synarthral giants. See, in the immovable giants, the bones containing, the joints containing such kind of immovable giants completely stop the movement. No free movement of such giants. Nil the movement. Such kind of giants are called immovable giants or synarthral giants. Here the examples of location of the immovable giants. Sutures, S-U-T-U-R-E-S, sutures of cranial bones. I think in the previous class, I have discussing the sutures of cranial bones in the axial skeleton. Sutures of cranial bones. Cranial bones. For example, the joint between frontal bone, parietal bone and temporal bone, etc. are the sutures are there. Such kind of sutures are the immovable giants, completely immovable giants. So, the sutures of cranial bones are the immovable giants. Example for immovable giants. And next example, second example is the dentalular, dentalular joint. Dentalular joint means so the tooth fixed in the socket of the jaw. Giant is called dentalular giant. You should remember this statement. The tooth fixed in the socket of the jaw. The tooth fixed in the socket of the jaw is the dentalular giant. This is also one type of immovable giant. Immovable giant. So there are two examples of synarthral or immovable giants, like sutures of cranial bones. Say, these sutures of cranial bones are the immovable joints between frontal and parietal lobe or parietal lobe, temporal or etc. bones, cranial bones are the sutures. So, sutures are the immovable joints. And another example is the dentalular joint, located between tooth and socket of the jaw. Then next to the immovable joints is the slightly movable joints or amphiarthral joints or cartilage joints. Cartilage joints. See, these joints made up of hyaline cartilaginous tissue, hyaline cartilaginous bone. That's why such kind of joints are called cartilaginous joints. These joints shows slightly movement, never freely movement, never showing the freely movement, slightly movement, slight movement. That's why that is also called slightly movable joints or amphiarthral joints. Amphiarthral joints. So you should remember one important concept in clearly. The slightly movable joints are made up of hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilaginous tissue, it is responsible for movement of bones joint in slightly. So it is also called slightly movable joint or amphiarthral joint or cartilaginous joints. Your example of amphiarthral or slightly movable joints. First example is the epiphysis. Epiphysis, joint between epiphysis and shaft bone. You should remember this statement. Epiphysis and shaft of the femur bone. For example, this area is the epiphysis and this area is the shaft. The connecting point between epiphysis and shaft is made up of hyaline cartilaginous tissue. After certain age, this hyaline cartilaginous tissue completely replaced by bone or osseous tissue. So, the connecting point between epiphysis and shaft region of femur bone is the hyaline cartilaginous tissue, since this hyaline cartilaginous tissue responsible for slightly movement, or it is also called cartilaginous joint. So, the first example of slightly movable joint or amphiarthral or cartilage joint is the epiphysis and shaft region of femur bone. And next one is the between tibia and the fibular bones. Between tibia and fibular bones. See, this area, this gap, this joint present between tibia and fibular bone of the hind limb is one type of slightly movable joint, amphiarthral joint made up of hyaline cartilaginous tissue. And next one is the pubic symphysis. Pubic symphysis is the joint between two capsule bones in the pubic part made up of hyaline cartilaginous tissue. This is also type of a slightly movable joint because in females during pregnancy period, after completion of a pregnancy period, the pubic bone becomes enlarged and slightly movable for easy to parturition. That's why the joint present between two capsule bones is the pubic symphysis. This is made up of hyaline cartilaginous tissue. And next to the pubic symphysis, another example is the joint between ribs and sternum bone. Joint between rib cage and sternum bone. One type of slightly movable joint. And another example is the invertebral discs of vertebrae. Invertebral discs of vertebrae. One more example of a slightly movable joint. Means the gap present between vertebral column bones. The gap present between vertebral column bones is made up of hyaline cartilaginous tissue. This hyaline cartilaginous tissue responsible for slightly movement of backbone or vertebral column. So these are all the good examples of classical examples of slightly movable amphiarterial or cartilaginous joints. And last one is the very important freely movable joints. Freely movable joints are diarthral joints. Freely movable joints are diarthral joints are one more important synovial joints. Synovial joints. See, in the freely movable joints, the connecting point between two bones, the joint between two bones, freely movable, either in one plane or two planes or in multi-planes. That's why they are commonly called freely movable joints, diarthral joints or synovial joints. Yeah, there are different types of synovial joints. Very important for NEET exam and KCET exams. There are several types of, nearly 7 different types of synovial joints. Among them, first one is the ball and socket joint. Ball and socket joint. See, in this type of joint, in the ball and socket joint, the joints are freely movable in multi directions. For example, in cricket game, when we will bowling, the right hand or left hand can freely movable in multi directions, in all directions. In which very important, the head of one bone acts as a ball and the cavity of another bone acts as a socket. You should remember this statement. The head of one bone acts as a ball and the cavity of another bone functions as a socket. Hence it is commonly called ball and socket joint. And it shows movement. In all directions, in multi directions. That is meaning for ball and socket joint. Yeah, examples of ball and socket joints are. Some examples of ball and socket joints are. Listen here. Shoulder joint. Pectoral girdle joint. Shoulder joint means the head of the humerus bone, hand bone fixed in the glenoid cavity of the very important, glenoid cavity of the scapular bone. Say, shoulder joint formed by head of the humerus bone, arm bone, and cavity of glenoid cavity of scapular bone. That is one type of ball and socket joint. So, your shoulder joint formed by head of humerus bone and glenoid cavity of scapular bone. Glenoid cavity of scapular bone, one type of ball and socket joint. And next to second example is the hip joint. Hip joint. It is formed by fusion of head of femur bone and acetabular cavity of the coxal bone in pelvic region, in pelvic girdle. See, this is coxal bone of pelvic girdle, and this is the area of the acetabular cavity. Into the acetabular cavity, the head of the femur bone is fixed in the form of ball and socket joint. So, the hip joint formed by fusion of head of the femur and acetabulum cavity of coxal bone of the pelvic girdle. One more example of ball and socket joint. Ball and socket joint are freely movable joint. And next example, incus and stapes bones. The joint present between incus and stapes bones is the ball and socket joint. I think yesterday I have discussed with you this joint in the topic of skull bones, in the topic of skull associated bones. See, ear ossicles and hyoid bone are the two different types of skull bones. Here hyoid bone is the U-shaped bone, that should be single bone supported to the tongue region. While the remaining 6 bones are the ear ossicle bones. Ear ossicles, nothing but the composition of malleus, incus, and stapes. 3 bones of the middle ear, collectively called as incus bone. Collectively called as ear ossicles. So, ear ossicles made up of 3 different types of bones. For easy to remembering this statement, we should use a simple abbreviated formula MIS, M-I-S, malleus, incus, and stapes, collectively called as ear ossicles. See, the joint present between malleus and incus is the hinge joint, H-I-N-G-E, hinge joint. While the joint present between incus and stapes bone is the ball and socket joint. So the third example for ball and socket is the incus and stapes joint. Are the 3 examples of ball and socket joint. So in the topic of ball and socket joint, these joints can freely movable in all directions, in multi directions, never one plane, either vertical plane or in a horizontal or transverse plane. That is the first type of synovial joint called ball and socket joint. Then next to the ball and socket joint, second one is the hinge joint. Second one is the hinge joint. Hinge joint. See, here the meaning of a hinge joint is, in this type of joint, movement is present. In one plane, along through transverse axis, along through transverse axis means only this kind of movement along through transverse axis. That is the meaning for a hinge joint. You should remember, in the hinge joint, the movement of joint so takes place in one plane along through transverse axis. Transverse axis. That is the meaning of a hinge joint. Here the examples of a hinge joint, very important. Elbow joint, elbow joint, elbow joint, followed by connecting point between humerus bone, nothing but arm bone, and radius ulna. Radius ulna bones. Say the joint present between humerus bone and radius ulna bone. This is the elbow joint, one type of a hinge joint. You should remember this statement. In this hinge joint, whenever our arm, our forelimb, our hand shows the movement only in this direction, only in this direction, never by multiple directions, because this is a type of hinge joint to show one plane or one axis of the movement. So that elbow joint, one type of example of hinge joint. And the next one is the ankle joint. Ankle joint, formed by fusion between tibia, fibula, and tarsals, tarsal bones. See, this joint is the hinge joint. Tibia and fibula and tarsals joint is the hinge joint, because it shows movement only in one axis, only in one plane. That should be transverse plane. So it is a classical example for hinge joint. And the next example of hinge joint is the knee joint. Knee joint, formed by fusion between humerus bone, means thigh bone, and tibia fibula. Tibia fibula. This patella bone region is the knee joint, formed by femur, tibia, and fibula. That is one type of hinge joint. Hinge joint. And next one is the last one is the interphalanges. Interphalanges of both forelimbs and hind limbs. Both forelimbs and hind limbs. Say, in between phalanges of the hind limbs or in between phalanges of the forelimbs is a type of hinge joint, because it shows only this kind of movement, only one plane of movement, only one axis of the movement. That is the classical example of a hinge joint. So the important examples of hinge joint are elbow joint, ankle joint, knee joint, and interphalangeal joint are the good examples of hinge joints. Then next to the hinge joint, pivot joint, P-I-V-O-T, pivot joint. Say, in this type of joint, movement is present in one plane, very important, that is in vertical axis, never in transverse axis, so in vertical axis. You should remember this statement. In the pivot joint, movement is present in one plane, along through vertical axis. Vertical axis is the major identification mark of a pivot child. Pivot child. Here example of pivot child. First example, very important. It can seen in head region. Pivot region no, pivot child no, present in the head region. That is saying this is one simple example of a skull. In this skull, the atlas bone, first vertical column bone called atlas bone, attached to the axis bone, bind to the axis bone through pivot child. So, the joint present between, you should remember this statement, the joint present between atlas bone and axis bone is the pivot child. This is because, example, anybody can show the signal no by the help of head movement like this. This movement is the pivot joint movement. So when we will see the no answer by the signals, by the symbols, by showing movement of head like this. This is one type of pivot joint. In the pivot joint, the movement takes place between atlas bone and axis bone. Very important. Never converge and atlas. Atlas and axis bone. Atlas and axis bone is the good example of a pivot joint. And next example, second example is the radius and ulna. Radius and ulna bone of the forelimbs. See, this is the point of radius ulna. See my hand, here radius and ulna bone shows the movement only in this plane, only vertical axis plane, never in the transverse axis. That's why the radius and ulna bones are the good examples of pivot joint. That is also a type of free movable joint. Then next to the pivot joint is the gliding joint. You should remember, for easy to identification mark of gliding joint is here gliding nothing but in Greek meaning in Greek language meaning gliding means slipping, slippery moving. So in the gliding joint, one bone slip on the another bone. You should remember this statement clearly. In gliding joint movement, in gliding joint type of the movement, one bone slip on the another bone. Example of gliding joints: wrist bones. Very important. Say wrist bones 18 number present in a wrist region, 18 number. During movement of wrist in all directions, they show some kind of jerking movement, some kind of slippery movement. That is one type of gliding joint. So in total, gliding nothing but slippery movement, slipping by slipping of one bone on the another bone to show the movement. Example, wrist bones, wrist joint. And second example is the ankle joint. Ankle bones or ankle joint. Here, the 7 bones of the tarsals, never carpals. 7 bones of the ankle region shows the slippery movement. So, ankle bones are the good example of a gliding joint. And last one is the joint between zygopophosis of the vertebrae of the vertebral column bones. Zygopophosis of vertebral column bones shows the gliding movement. I think yesterday I have discussed this quite clearly in the topic of vertebral column. Say each vertebra has body and two projections. Each vertebra has body and two projections. Inside the body is the cavity at the center, that is called neural canal. Such cavity is called neural canal. Through the neural canal, the spinal cord transferred from skull to the tailbone, skull to the coccyx bone. That is the function of the neural canal. And these two projections are named as pre-zygopophosis and post-zygopophosis. Pre-zygopophosis and post-zygopophosis. So that vertebral column containing totally 3 joints, 3 numbers of joints. Out of 3 joints, 2 joints are called hinge joints. 2 joints are called hinge joints, and remaining one is called cartilaginous joint present in the invertebral disc. This is the invertebral disc made up of cartilage joint. While in between pre and post zygopophosis, are the 2 hinge joints. 2 different types of gliding joints. So joint between 2 zygopophosis is the gliding joint, and next to the gliding joint is the saddle joint. See, in the saddle joint, ball and socket is incompletely developed, impartially developed. So, saddle joint nothing but it is a type of bones joint in which ball and socket are incompletely or impartially developed. That is the meaning for saddle joint. So it is a type of joint in which ball and socket are incompletely developed. That is the meaning for saddle joint. Here examples of saddle joints. Very important for competitive exams. So joint between metacarpals and carpals of the thumb bone, of the thumb finger. See, the joint between carpals and metacarpals of thumb bone, thumb finger bones. Example for saddle joint. Listen here, very important. Say, out of our 5 fingers, among the 5 fingers, out of 5 fingers, the thumb finger can easily and freely movable in the form of saddle movement. Nothing but in Kannada translation saddle andre uyyale ant karitevi, uyyale saddle movement. So here the thumb finger shows the movement, shows the saddle movement due to incomplete development of a ball and socket joint. That's why the thumb finger can freely movable and freely enjoy greatly as compared to the other 4 fingers. You should remember the thumb finger freely enjoy movement as compared to the other four fingers, so due to saddle child. Saddle child. That is the classical example for saddle child. Then next to the saddle child, last kind of giant is the condylar giant. Condylar giant. See, here condylar giant nothing but here the articulation of two condyles. You should remember articulation nothing but fixed joint of two condyles. So fixed of two condyles. So articulation of two condyles shows the movement. Shows the movement in two planes, like both vertical and transverse. Say in only one vertical direction, only one vertical axis plane, only one vertical axis plane, that is the pivot giant. Only in the transverse so that is the hinge giant. While both in the vertical axis and transverse axis is the condylar giant. So here the two condylar articulation or giant shows the movement in two planes, like vertical and transverse axis. Vertical plane and transverse plane is called condylar giant. Here the example of condylar giant is. Say, it is also seen in skull region. Here, the two occipital condyles of skull, very important. The two occipital condyles, because human skull is the bicondylar skull, never monocondylar skull, bicondylar skull, due to presence of two condyles, two occipital condyles. See, these two occipital condyles are fixed in the atlas bone. First, vertebral column bone. Such kind of giant is the occipito-atlas giant, occipito-condylar atlas giant, or condylar giant. Here, the practical example of condylar giant. Listen here. Any can say the answer yes. Anybody can say the answer yes, like a signal, like this, never this, like this. That is one type of condylar movement. Takes place between condyles and the atlas bone. Or anybody show the signal for coming. Be listen here this point. Anybody can show the signal for coming, like this. This kind of movement, this type of movement is the condylar movement due to action of the condylar giant. Important in between occipital condyles and atlas bone. So you should remember this statement in clearly. Anybody can say the answer no. We can show the signal by like this movement. This type of movement. That is a type of hinge giant present between atlas bone and axis bone. You should remember, in between atlas and axis bone is a type of hinge giant, while in between occipital condyles and atlas bone is the condylar giant. Very important indirected question, skill question for NEET examination. So, what kind of movement, what kind of giant action when we will say the answer yes? What kind of giant show the action when we will say the answer yes? That is condylar giant action. in between occipital condyles and atlas bone. And what kind of joint shows the movement when we will say the answer no. That is hinge joint present between atlas bone and axis bone. Atlas bone and axis bone. That is the good example of condylar joint in between occipital condyles and atlas bone. So these are all the six different types of free movable joints or diarthral joints or synovial joints. Very, very important. At least one important question is there from these different types of joints. And till here is the topic of bones joints like immovable joints, slightly movable joints, and freely movable joints. And the last topic of locomotions and movement lesson. Disorders, diseases of muscle and skeletal system. Say, here there are several disorders of muscular system or skeletal system. Here the important disorders of muscular system: myasthenia, gravis, myasthenia gravis. It is a type of autoimmune disorder. Autoimmune disorder that affects neuromuscular junction. Listen here. This is the axon of the neuron, and this is the muscle. In between them is the neuromuscular junction. Say, the autoimmune disorder affects the neuromuscular junction that leads to important fatigue, weakness of muscles, or paralysis of skeletal muscles. They are the problems of myasthenia gravis, paralysis, or fatigue condition, or muscle weakness, are the autoimmune disorder symptoms that is called myasthenia gravis. This is a type of muscular disorder. And next one is the muscular dystrophy. Muscular dystrophy. It is a type of autosomal dominant genetic disorder. You should remember this statement. Muscular dystrophy is a type of autosomal dominant genetic disorder. It leads to progressive degeneration of skeletal muscles, continuous loss of degeneration of skeletal muscles, voluntary muscles, or stripped muscles, or striated muscles is the problem of muscular dystrophy. And next one is the tetanus disorder. It is caused due to spasm of muscles, SPASM. Very important, you should remember. Rapid spasm of muscles. Rapid spasm of muscles, nothing but wild contraction, continuous contraction of skeletal muscles due to, very important, low calcium ions in the body fluids. Nothing but if the calcium salts, if the calcium ions leads to deficiency in our body, then causes the tetanus muscular disorder because of wild contraction or rapid spasm of skeletal muscles. So sometimes, listen here, the skeletal muscles contraction of skeletal muscles becomes failure in the jaw region due to tetanus disorder. As a result, to fail the movement of lower jaw, movement of lower jaw. As a result, the jaw become locked, completely immobile, completely locked. That's why the tetanus disorder is also called lockjaw disease. LOCK, lockjaw disorder, because of failure of contraction of skeletal muscles so in the mandibles and maxilla bone. And next to these three different types of muscular disorders, skeletal disorders, bone disorders are arthritis, meaning for arthritis, never anthrax, so arthritis, inflammation of bones joint, inflammation of bones joint is called arthritis. This is because the study of bones joint is called arthritis. That's why inflammation of bones joint is called arthritis. And next disorder is gout disease. G-O-U-T, gout disorder. Say, your gout disorder nothing but the inflammation of bones joint due to accumulation of uric acid crystals. You should remember uric acid crystals. Uric acid crystals means the crystals present in the urea, the hard chemical substances so present in the urea are called uric acid crystals. Whenever nephrons of the kidneys becomes failure for the filtration of blood, nothing but whenever kidney becomes failure, all uric acid crystals so accumulated in the blood, stored in the blood, and such uric acid crystals so circulated through blood vessels and stored in the bones joint, then leads to inflammation. Such kind of bone disorder is called gout disorder. So it is caused due to accumulation of uric acid crystals. And last one is the osteoporosis. Last type of bone disorder is the osteoporosis. Say, this type of bone disorder seen in aged peoples, more than 60 years, more than 70 years aged peoples. And in this disorder, the bone mass means the mass of the bone area decreases and increase the chances of fracture. Very important. The bone mass area decreases and increasing chance of fracture, bone fracture, because of softening of bones. And this osteoporosis disorder maximally seen in females as compared to the males. Osteoporosis disorder more common in aged women. Very important, due to decrease in estrogen hormone. See, in aged people in aged women after 50 years after 45 years to stop the menstrual cycle and enters into the menopause period. In the menopause period, the concentration of estrogen hormone will be low, then to cause the osteoporosis disorder. So, osteoporosis disease is more and maximally seen in females as compared to the males. Are the three different types of bone disorders like arthritis, gout, and osteoporosis, and three different types of muscle disorders, like myasthenia gravis, muscular dystrophy, and tetanus disorder. Here is our simple lesson: locomotion and movements. Then next to the locomotion and movement, neural control and coordination. Means in this lesson, we should be discussing about how the nerve cells can function, how the neurons can function in our body for the transmission of impulse from receptors to the effector region. And what are the different parts involved in coordination of nerve system, coordination of our nerve system control are the main highlights of our simple lesson name, neural control and coordination. Now we are going to discussing about the first topic of this lesson is the neuron. Structure of the neuron, parts of the neuron or nerve cell. See, here the neuron means it is the structural and functional unit of nerve tissue. The structural and functional unit of nerve tissue is called neuron. Here, on the basis of number of functions. Number of projections or processors. Neurons are classified into three different types, like unipolar neuron, bipolar neuron, and multipolar neuron. Please listen here, students. On the basis of number of processors or projections, there are three different types of nerve cells. There are three different types of neurons, like unipolar, bipolar and multipolar. In unipolar neuron, there is only one process or projection. For example, this is cell body or cyton or perikaryon, and this is the projection arising from the cyton. So, in the unipolar neuron, there is only one projection derived from the cyton. It can act as a axon, no dendron. That is mean for uni. Uni means single, polar means projection. So single projection derived from, arising from the cyton is called unipolar neuron. It is found in embryo. Only embryo is the location and example for occurrence of the unipolar neuron. Then unipolar, next to unipolar is the bipolar neuron. In bipolar neuron, two projections arising from the cyton. Now this is cyton, a cell body from single cyton to arise the two projections. To nothing but bipolar neuron, two projections. Among them, one can function as axon, another one function as dendron. That is meaning for bipolar neuron. Such type of bipolar neurons presenting retina of eye and olfactory lobes, smell lobe, identifying lobes, made up of bipolar neurons and retina of our eye, composition of bipolar neurons. Next to the bipolar neuron is the multipolar neuron. Here multipolar neuron nothing but if many projections, more than two projections arising from the cyton, developing from the cyton, among them only one projection acts as axon and remaining them function as dendrons. You should remember this statement. In multipolar neuron, many projections, more than two projections, two processes arising from the cyton, among them Only one can function as axon, remaining them function as dendrons. That is called multipolar neuron. Such a type of multipolar neuron present in central nervous system like brain and spinal cord. But in our topic, we have only parts and structure of multipolar neuron. In next day, I will be going to discussing with the structure and parts of multipolar myelinated neuron.